Hey there, John Hall from Kion here, and today we are going to talk about reviewing the logs for the Kion platform. Now, we are going to do this by starting in the account where Kion is installed, and just double check your region up here and make sure that you're in the correct region. We need to be in the same region that Kion's installed in. If you're not sure, you can check CloudFormation for the app stacks. We are going to go over to the CloudWatch service to begin with. This is where all of our logs are, regardless of whether or not you are installed with the EC2 variant or ECS Fargate. And we are going to use logs insights. This is important, especially because we recommend that production environments have multiple nodes, and those nodes all run instances of the services if you're doing EC2. So we want to make sure that we can capture those all. Up here at the top of the Logs Insights window, we want to make sure that we go down to the Kion-logs, or this might be called CloudTamer-logs. If you've had an environment that's been installed for a little while, that gets set at installation time. All right, so we're going to do that. We also want to pay attention up here to the time frame selector. So if we are using if we're looking for log information for something that maybe occurred a couple of days ago or something along those lines, make sure that we set this appropriately. You could use the relative timeframes here if that makes sense. You can also use absolute timeframes. The one caution is if you're using absolute timeframes, you should just double check this up here. You can set this either to UTC or to local time zone. And so depending on what you're doing, this will be different. And so those log messages are going to show up based on that filter, depending on what time zone you have selected. So we're going to stick with UTC. And then we're going to get started by using the filter command. So what's provided by default is actually fairly acceptable, except for line 3 here. We want to go and modify line 3. So we're going to go in here, we're going to do something like filter. And then we have the ability to do filtering either on a direct field. So I'm going to show you a simple version of that. So you might do something like filter at message, like, and we might say something like, error, if we just want to see general errors that are coming through. That's a very basic version of doing that. We can run the query. We're probably going to get a lot of things that are going to come back. What I want to point out to you, though, is that our messages inside of our logs have several fields associated with them. And so you can see the fields are broken out. They're in this as a JSON blob, but they are also broken out automatically by CloudWatch. And so you can query against these fields instead. And so sometimes that can give you a little bit more of a narrow scope in terms of what you might be looking for. And one of the things to point out here is that we have this field called app. And we have several apps. These are our microservices inside of the platform. And so we want to look for things like Web API for most of the errors that are going to be in response to an event where you're performing a function inside of the platform. The other microservices that we have primarily are running in the background. And so to do that, I would be interested in saying something like app equals Web API. And there's another field down here that we can look at called level. And so if I just want to see errors, I could use level as well. So level equals error. And then I could run the query there. And now we're getting a little bit more specific in terms of what it is that we're going to get. So now all our results relate back to Web API. And we can get some of that more specific information in terms of the things that we might want to get. Certainly, you can get a little bit more advanced with this, but that's the simple way to look through there. And then if I wanted to add on to this, another way, if I know something about the error message that I'm getting, this little MSG field is actually just the specific error message that I'm getting back. So if we wanted to find information about this particular account number, for example, and MSG, and I would typically, when I'm searching MSG, I will just use like, and then I will run the query. And then this will give us everything about that particular account back, and we can try to narrow things down. But this should help you to be able to look through the logs. If you want to export those results, you can do so right here. These will be all of the results of your query. So you can take that and you could do, if you're attaching it to one of our tickets, we typically like for you to do it as a CSV. One last thing to point out, showing 210 of 210 records is fine, but sometimes that will say that there are more records. And so you want to come in here and limit of 10,000 is the maximum that you can do. And you'll want to append that on using the pipe sign so that you can get all of your records. There you go. That's what I wanted to share. Thanks for your time.